Hello again. Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers. We're here each week meeting interesting people and talking about topical subjects. And I'll tell you, if you're low on caffeine today, the energy in our next guest is going to be able to inject whatever enthusiasm you need to get through your day.
Indeed. We have to have Mike McCarville come back on about once every 5 or 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that, to talk to us about what we're calling today politics as usual, if there is such a thing.
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
kind of an uproarious time.
It is. A lot going on. Not only do we have the presidential shenanigans, we have stuff going on locally, and Mike McCarville is up on all of that. He'll share his wisdom, or lack of, next on The Verdict.
In driving rain, blistering heat, and bitter cold, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, Chesapeake drills non-stop for natural gas on American soil. Chesapeake drills more new gas wells than anyone else, and from those wells collects the most drilling information and acquires more 3D seismic images, leveraging every efficiency to improve the odds of finding more natural gas every day with every well we drill. The better job we do of discovering bigger reserves of clean-burning American natural gas, the greater the prosperity of our nearby communities, our state, and our nation. And as long as there are more gas reserves to be found here in the U.S., we will never rest. Chesapeake. Natural gas wins the day.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
An old friend visits us today, or at least he starts out as an old friend. If we can leave him alone, we'll retain that friendship. Mike McCarville's back for another visit on The Verdict. He was for a long time program director at KTOK and a talk show host there. He's been a political consultant over the years. He's got his own blog now called the McCarville Report Online. Mike's back to talk to us about politics as usual in Oklahoma and in the nation. Welcome back.
Thank you, sir. I was doing fine today until you introduced me as old friend Mike McCarville. If you'd said friend of many years, Kent, that would have been preferable.
Good friend.
Good friend. Thank you, sir.
That's better.
Hey, there's no shortage of things to talk about.
Oh, my goodness
What's
gracious.
like on the top of your mind today?
Presidential race, obviously, right now. In terms of national politics, just because there's so much
I hate
going
to
on.
disappoint you, but in this segment we're going to talk about local stuff.
We can do that.
Probably was too open-ended of an opportunity to start.
We can do that because there's a lot going on locally as well, Mick, as you know.
Yeah, and state legislature is just getting revved up and raring to go.
Getting ready to start, get underway, and it's going to be an interesting year. It's an election year, and of course that means a lot of posturing by Republicans and Democrats as well. Of course, Republicans now control the House and hope to take control of the Senate, which is now tied 24-24.
On your website, the McCarville Report Online, lots of talk about the auditor's issues. What can you tell us?
Well, as we know, State Auditor and Inspector Jeff McMahon and his wife, Lori, indicted by a federal grand jury, 9 counts, very serious matter. And I've read the affidavits filed by the FBI, the ones that have been made public so far, and absolutely damning information. What we've come to find out is that the agents of the FBI were tape recording conversations between the McMahons and Steve Phipps, the abstract company owner from southeastern Oklahoma that's already entered a guilty plea in this whole case. It's really the seamy side of what appears to be the seamy side of a public official literally using his office to benefit a guy who violated the law in terms of giving him straw donations to his campaign and trying to help him in other ways. So it seems to me, I don't see how Jeff McMahon, frankly, can survive this. I think he's toast.
Well, Gary Jones, I guess, was talking about this a number of years ago, although nobody apparently was listening
Well,
to it.
Gary Jones was the auditor's opponent both in 2006 and in 2002, and literally first started raising these issues about campaign contributions in the 2002 race. And even during the 2006 race, repeated the allegations he had made before, and even, was talking about Steve Phipps, this abstract company owner. Of course, he was Gene Stipe's partner in the abstract companies, and raised a lot of these same issues. And of course, Gary Jones now is feeling pretty vindicated, and I think with pretty good reason.
Mm-hmm. Well, if McMahon resigns, how will his spot be filled, do you think?
The governor will name a replacement. And of course, right now, I'm sure Gary Jones would love to have that appointment, but since he's now the chairman of the Oklahoma Republican Party, I doubt that that's going to happen. Brad Henry says he's very bipartisan and nonpartisan.
Well, now's a good time to show it.
I'm not sure he's that much nonpartisan or bipartisan.
That'd be a real test.
That would be a real test, yeah. And there have been a couple of names floating out there. I don't think any of them are serious at this point. The governor obviously doesn't want to talk too much about it because McMahon is, after all, like him, a Democrat. And they're going to let it play out. But again, I think this is the evidence before us anyway, contained in these FBI affidavits, seems pretty concrete to me. And I don't whether it'll result in some kind of a plea agreement or guilty plea. Who knows at this point?
But the governor's chosen replacement would serve until 2010.
That's
the
correct.
Next round of elections.
That's my understanding.
There's no open seat available. It's just a
that's
replacement.
my understanding. Just like when Carol Fisher resigned as insurance commissioner,
Right.
and the governor appointed Kim Holland. She served until the next election.
But that's
in
all assuming that he leaves office, right? Today,
oh, that
he's
is.
still in
Yep,
office.
He's still
today.
in office,
Okay.
although he has turned over the day-to-day operation to his assistant auditor, attorney Michelle Day.
Okay.
So
Now, looks to me like, just from reading the newspaper, and that's all I know about it, it's the auditor's connection with the abstract business that has been at least part of the problem.
Well,
And the legislature, I guess, now has stripped out the,
did that last session
Yes.
after all the controversy, after all the allegations.
well, tell us about that.
Connecting.
A little bit.
Well, the auditor and inspector has for years regulated the abstract industry. And the legislature, following the questions that were raised in the campaign, last session changed the law, became effective January 1st this year. And there's a separate abstract committee now, or abstract board of governors, that now oversees the abstract industry. Took that out of the auditor's office.
Well, let's change the subject. Just staying local, though, Speaker of the House, Lance Cargill, continues to be on the front page for one
Much to his chagrin, I would
allegation
think.
after another. What's your take on that?
Well, first, let's just kind of recap what's occurred in recent months involving the Republican Speaker of the House. First, allegations that checks made out to one political action committee in previous year wound up in a second political action committee account, and the Ethics Commission reportedly is investigating that particular matter. Then we have the matter of the Speaker and other House members going down to Dallas to the home of a controversial Dallas businessman, Gene Phillips, for a fundraiser for Republican presidential candidate Mike Huckabee. And some people get confused. They think all of the news coverage was because Cargill and others went down to Dallas to a fundraiser for Mike Huckabee. That's not what the controversy really is all about. The controversy really is all about that the Speaker of the House and other Republican members of the House, some of whom sit on a certain committee in the House, went to the home of Gene Phillips in Dallas after having voted to approve a piece of legislation Mr. Phillips apparently wanted last session of the legislature. It didn't pass the legislature, but it did pass out of the committee on which some of these members sit. So it's this appearance that these people are going to Gene Phillips' home when they've taken contributions from him or his son, Bradford Phillips, in exchange for their favorable action on a measure to benefit his insurance companies. And some of them, as a result, have sent back contributions that they've received in the last few weeks from the son, Gene Phillips' son, Bradford Phillips, just because I think they realize the appearance that might create.
Now,
so it is, as we say, a bit of a sticky wicket.
Well, I interrupted you. Go ahead
No,
and finish your.
I was just going to say, and then the most recent items involving the Speaker are the accounts to which he's admitted that he failed to file personal income taxes on time for a couple of years. And the most recent story is that he failed to file property taxes on his law firm in Hera for over a period of 6 years. So it just creates the appearance of a leader who's not paying very much attention to things he should be paying attention to.
Do you think it'll have any long-term fallout for him?
I think it will. As one Republican member said to me, one Republican House member said to me, it's hard to lead from a high position if it's obvious that your feet got a little bit of clay on them. And I think the problem the Speaker now is going to have in trying to take a leadership position is that it's going to give any Democrat who wants to the opportunity to say, boy, you talk a good game, but you don't practice a very good game. And the question, of course, how responsible are you if you don't pay income taxes or you're late with them a few years and you're not paying in a timely fashion the taxes on your business. It does raise some questions, and I think the Speaker is going to have to deal with that. But the difference to me, some people already said, well, you know, we got Jeff McMahon with the Democrats and we got Lance Cargill with the Republicans. To me, that's an apple and an orange. Yeah. The allegations against Jeff McMahon and his wife are serious criminal federal violations of the law. Lance Cargill's not been accused of breaking any law that I know of. Late, tardy in filing taxes, both personal and property, yes, but that doesn't rise anywhere near the level of the allegations against the auditor.
Well put. Let me take a break, and then we'll get back and we'll get your take on the presidential elections and where we stand right now. We're visiting with Mike McCarville of the McCarville Report Online. We'll be back on The Verdict right after this.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
Okiwani is an Indian name for a place where children play. When we obtained the camp, we found a lot of oil debris left in the woods. We saw a commercial about how the oil and natural gas industry cleans up old oil well sites. We called the OERB and they agreed to remove tons of concrete and steel. It didn't cost us a thing. Thousands of children have left their footprints on this land. Thanks to the oil and gas industry, they will for a long time to come.
Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers. As always, Mike McCarville, our guest today. We talked about local politics in the last segment, and in this segment, we're going to talk about national politics. We're taping this just right before Florida and before Super Tuesday. But to kind of sum up the presidential elections and the 2008 campaign as you've seen it, it's kind of been an ebb and flow.
It certainly has. On the Democratic side, I still believe the eventual nominee, excuse me, is going to be Hillary Clinton. But Barack Obama is sure scaring her to death. I'll tell you that. And I wouldn't make a serious wager either way right now. I think Barack Obama and his campaign and the enthusiasm, particularly from his younger supporters, has propelled him to a place where I don't think Hillary and Bill Clinton ever thought they would be facing the kind of challenge from Barack Obama that they've been facing. And the fact that he won South Carolina didn't surprise me. What totally surprised me was the size of his margin.
2-1.
2-1. 55 to 24%, or I mean, it was just 27%, astronomical. And poor John Edwards, in his birth state, runs a distant, weak third, still says he's going to stay in it.
What's the politics of negative campaigning, Mike? Can you ever get your finger on what people accept and what they don't accept, and when it works and when it doesn't work?
I think the Clintons certainly are pushing the envelope on that particular issue right now, and Barack Obama to a certain extent.
Is it there just some people that people don't like to see attacked?
Yeah, I think that's true. And you know, the negative campaigns and negative attacks, Mick, they work both ways. There are those who say, who are your ardent supporters who say, yeah, knock 'em hard, boy, we love that kind of stuff. And then this is the group you got to be careful with. Those who may be leaning towards you, but who get offended if they think you're being unfair or too rough or nasty or negative or throwing mud, and all of a sudden they're over in the other guy's camp.
Right.
And I think in a way that's probably what happened to Clintons in some part in South Carolina. Because, you know, in the black, among the black voters, exit polls showed in South Carolina, 81% of them went for Barack Obama. I don't think that would have happened had not the race issue been raised. I think he would have still been in the, 70%, but not 81%. And, for Bill and Hillary Clinton, that's got to hurt.
What impact on the Democratic side, if any, do these recent endorsements by the Kennedys have, as opposed to endorsing Clinton?
Well, I tell you, with the general voting public, if you will, on the Democrat side and the Republican side, I don't think they amount to a hill of beans. But to the candidates, I can guarantee you that Bill and Hillary Clinton are so ticked off they can't hardly see straight. And that is the danger if you let yourself as a candidate or a candidate's key supporter group become distracted by these endorsements of your opponent. You tend to run the risk of letting your campaign go off the railroad track. And they've been dealing with a lot of this. They've had some black leaders, I think, that they were confident were going to endorse Hillary Clinton and instead endorsed Obama. And you've had a lot of white leaders, obviously, in Congress and out, who have endorsed Obama. And I think I'm sure there was some fit throwing, if that's the right way to describe it.
Can the Democratic Party unite and somehow get those two on the same ticket this summer?
I don't know about the same ticket. I take Obama has made it pretty clear he doesn't have any interest in becoming vice president. Of course, we all know circumstances have a way of changing one's mind when you get down to that actual point. I think they'll be fairly unified no matter who the nominee is come the summer. And on the Republican side, this has been very interesting. The guy I supported initially, Fred Thompson, was essentially a no-show. Went through a few primary states and was not even a blip on the radar screen and has dropped out. And it's, we've now got Giuliani still in it, although I think probably by the time this airs, he may be having to look at his whole card because I don't think he's going to do well in Florida or on Super Tuesday. And so you're left with John McCain and Mitt Romney. And I've got friends in the party on both sides who feel very strongly, those with McCain and those with Romney. And who knows how that's going to play out. I think the Super Tuesday results will give us a much better indication of how that's going to play.
Okay, and what about Mike Bloomberg?
Michael Bloomberg, the mayor of New York City. Don't tell me you're a friend of Michael Bloomberg. No, the independent, the Democrat turned Republican turned independent.
That's right. That
Gun
guy.
grabber par excellence, which just sends me off the edge of the earth. This guy, it wouldn't surprise me a bit if he pursues his independent candidacy. In my opinion, will go nowhere. But he's the kind of guy, in a lot of ways, like Republican Mitt Romney. His personal wealth is such. What does he care if he spends a few tens of millions of dollars out there running? It's chump change to him, and he may well do it. I don't think it'll have much of an impact.
Is there room for someone who is socially a centrist and a fiscal conservative to kind of elbow their way into this, really to a third
Yes. national
party, but specifically in this election, to a large enough electorate to make a difference?
I think there is, Mick, but it's too late for you to get into the race. I think there's always room for that kind of an individual. But you look across, Republicans say to me, golly, boy, look, we got Obama or Clinton. We just can't wait to run against either one of them. And I say, be careful what you wish for. Because you never know how these things are going to come out. 28 years ago now, I was involved initially in former Texas Governor John Connolly's campaign for the Republican nomination. We spent $14 million nationwide, and we got one delegate. Now, you never know what's going to happen to these things, and money doesn't always equate, so it all depends on who manages to get on top of that rising tide. And thus far, on the Democrat side, it's been Obama, to my surprise.
Let me ask you what your take is on the significance of Super Tuesday versus the big states, the big delegate count states that come after Super Tuesday.
Momentum for the main part. You see what Super Tuesday does. I mean, for example, if on the Democrat side, Obama even breaks even with Hillary Clinton after all the Super Tuesday votes are counted, he picks up a lot of momentum because the expectation is that she's going to, wipe the slate clean and take a lot of them. And on the Republican side, the expectation had been that Giuliani was going to run very well. Well, Giuliani, if he's still in it by then, is going to be a surprise to me because based on what he's done thus far, and again, we're taping this show prior to Super Tuesday, but based on what he's done thus far, he's a non-entity. So that leaves you with Romney and McCain. And which one of those two puts together the best scenario coming out of Super Tuesday is going to be in the best shape in momentum-wise to do well in those large states.
Yeah, California, Ohio, New York.
Absolutely, yeah. And California, of course, is the mother lode for most presidential candidates, as large as it is.
Is Romney's biggest problem that he can be termed a flip-flopper?
I think to some people it is. And I tell you, I think in our part of the country, I think the fact that he's a Mormon is going to hurt him to some extent because I think even people who nominally might be inclined to support him just can't quite get beyond that. And I don't think it's the kind of thing where it is a religious issue, but it's more just, people say to me, well, it doesn't matter to me as long as he's a man of faith. But I've sure got a problem with the faith.
15 seconds left. Is McCain's age an issue?
I think it is to some people, but I don't think it's as big an issue as some people would make it.
Okay. Mike McCarville, our guest today on The Verdict. Mike, thanks as always. We've run out of time just
My
when we were
pleasure.
getting started.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thanks.
Kent and I'll be back with the final word right after this. Mike, thanks for coming on.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
We're back on The Verdict. Mike McCarville, a barrel of energy.
Indeed, and a barrel of information. And it's usually always reliable and candid. He really does a good job with his homework.
If you like Oklahoma politics, Mike's website is a great place to go, and they can even send you an email automatically every day that just kind of updates you on the latest going on this website. We want to give that information to you. It's www.tmrcom.blogspot.com. Mike McCarville's website, the McCarville Report online. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. We'll see you next time on The Verdict.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.